There are so many different ways to start the new year. And because we are starting off 2023 right now, I wanted to kind of digest some of the variations and what that looks like. But more importantly, I want to talk to you about how to have some of these conversations with your kids too. So let's get started. There are different variations, as I mentioned, about how to start the year, right? There are the one word folks where they think of one word that keeps them grounded and guide their whole year, all of their attention. There's just a single word. Then there are the other individuals who write down goals. Some of them are very achievable and other goals are just kind of like, hey, you should have never written that down because you've never been able to keep that goal before. So why do you think it would be any different this year, right? But nonetheless, they write goals and they try to meet them every year. There are other individuals who like to just find a verse that keeps them grounded for that year, that they keep reading it daily and reminding themselves of that one verse, keep coming back to that. And then there are the individuals who just do nothing, that they feel like they're the same person they were December 31st as they are January 1st. So why do anything different? It's just another day that they woke up. As far as January 1st, they woke up and they're going to keep living the same way that they were living. Now, really, if you think about it, there's some truth to that, right? You really are the same person as you were on December 31st as you are on January 1st. But I do believe that there's some good that can come from the freshness of a new year. And essentially, that's what we're going to talk about. I'm kind of in the middle. Like I've been all of those people. I've done a word, I've done a verse, I've done goals, I've done resolutions. I've kind of done nothing. And then sometimes as the months go by March, I'm like, hey, you know what? This word seems to be consistent, or this goal seems to be consistent in my life. And then I kind of set it for the rest of the year. So I'm not really one of any to fit in any of those categories, but really it doesn't matter because regardless of the person, the type of person that you and I are, I do believe that there are some things that we can do to guide our children to lead them with motivation so they can increase their potential and essentially create new habits that can help them live out their purpose, live their life in a really big way where fear is not necessarily holding them back, where they are going back to the place of, hey, this is something that I want to do in my life. This is someone I want to become in my life. And make that a priority where they remind themselves of that purpose, where they stay motivated with that reminder. So with that, I want to guide you with 3 questions that you guys can ask your kids to lead this conversation. Now, you obviously are going to modify these questions regarding the depth that you have that relationship with your kid and also the age of your child. So depending on the age group that you have in your home, it could be that you simplify things if you're talking to a toddler. Guys, these really are questions, by the way, that you can ask any kid. These are questions that I ask my 4-year-old. Now, I do modify them if I'm talking to my 11-year-old, right? So Levi, he asks us, he's 11, he asks us really big questions sometimes that Josh and I have found ourselves not to have answers, and that's also okay. But then Micah will ask us, obviously lower level questions because he is 4. And so it'll be, what's your favorite animal? The big picture is that you are talking to them, that you are being their safe spot, that they recognize that, hey, I can go to mom and dad with any of my questions. Nothing is off limits. Nothing is too dumb to ask. Everything is welcomed because essentially that's what you want. You want them to come to you with their questions. So again, modify them as needed. These are all questions that can apply from toddlers all the way into adulthood. So if you have grown kids, use these strategies as well. Use these conversations starters with them because they will guide deep discussions if you let them. So the very first question is this: if you could do or be anything, what would you do or be? And then you pause and you let them think. And sometimes they'll ask you follow-up questions. Well, what do you mean? And you can add things like, well, if you were given $1 million, what would you do? If right now you received a gift to go anywhere in the world, where would you go? And what would you do? Why would you want to go there? So you can take that question in a whole lot of different ways. But essentially, what you're looking for is their interests. So you think, my kids said that they would want to go and help people, go be a doctor in Africa. What does that tell you? They love helping. They love being with people. And so then with figuring out your kids' interests, you can probe them and guide them towards those interests and feed that fire, motivate that potential that is an interest within their hearts. The second question: what's one thing you did really well last year? A lot of the times you're probably going to get something like this: I don't know. Am I right? So what happens when you get, I don't know? You have two options. You can either leave it, just be like, oh, okay, you don't know, like you don't want to talk about this. Or you can help them go beyond that and say, okay, well, let's think for a minute. What is one thing you did really well? And then you can rephrase it. What is one thing you did really well at school? What's one thing you did really well with your friends? What's one thing you did really well here at the house? What's one thing you did really well for yourself? And then they'll start thinking, well, I made an A in math. Yes, you did. And why was that the case? What happened with math that was different from the year before or the semester before? And so again, the main goal here is that these questions will lead into conversations. They will lead to deep relationships and really special, intentional moments where you connect with your child and you have the opportunity to disciple your child. Question number 3, the final question. What is one change you could make that would make you even better this year? You can also have some word alternatives for that word better. You can make it, what's something that you can change that would make you stronger this year? Stronger in your faith this year? What's one change you can make that would make you faster for your soccer career this year or football? What's one change you can make that would make you more intentional or more relational, more organized, more patient, less angry? So you fill in the blank for that word better. Whatever you feel like or you sense in your child that you can even think about what is something that you would like them to work on if you have a really messy child. In fact, I share this in the beginning of last year. Levi, I was actually calling out. It's like actually saying this to him. You're so messy. Your room is always messy. And then I caught myself and I was like, wait a minute. I'm speaking those things over him. I'm almost affirming the messiness in my son. And I stopped. And this was probably about March that I was like, no, what am I doing? And I changed my mindset. And I said, Levi, I would like for you to work on picking up after yourself this year. So look around whenever you're about to leave a room. Look around to see if there's any of your belongings that you're leaving behind. Now, granted, guys, we are all human. There are days that he just gets up and he left his shoes and his jacket and his glass of water on the counter and that, he didn't clean up after himself. But again, being careful not to speak these things over your kid. Like, you're such an angry person. Why don't you work on being less angry? We're not calling out negative things that will lead to their belief systems, where these kids will start believing that's who they are deep down inside and speaking those things over themselves. On the contrary, we are choosing life. And so with that question, that's what the main focus is here, that you maybe choose a word that you would like them to work on, and in a positive way, you digest that with them. Now, all of these questions are geared towards helping to motivate your child to recognize what they've done well, and to also think about things that they can improve, and also to think about what are my interests, what is my potential, like what am I capable to do? Because what happens a lot of times is that kids aren't even dreaming about what they want. They just go about their day to day in a very nonchalant way where they don't even have aspirations or ambitions or dreams. They just live. They get up, they go to school, they get home, eat dinner, play video games, whatever. But if you start these conversations and you actually create space for them to dream, not only that, you affirm their dreams. You don't downplay it. You don't say, oh, that's crazy. That career makes no money. You'll never make it as a musician. Are you crazy? Have you checked out Nashville? The country industry is super saturated. No. That's not what these conversations are about. These conversations are not for you, for what you're going to get out of the conversation, although you will richly be blessed and benefit from these conversations because your relationship with your child will be growing. What these moments are for primarily is for the child to be able to pause and think. Think outside the box. Think creatively. What is it that I like to do? What is it that I'm interested in? Okay, so again, it is the primary focus is to enhance these conversations with your children. These conversations can really take place anywhere, anytime. You find the ideal moment where you think, okay, I would like to have a moment with you and talk to you about some things. You don't even have to announce it. You can just start the conversation on the way to school one morning, as you pick them up one day, at the dinner table, on a walk, as you sit on the couch next to each other. It really doesn't matter the time or where they take place. I do have one encouragement though, is that screens are off when you have these conversations, as in phones aren't distracting you guys. The TV isn't on. It's not like you're watching a football game together and then you start having these conversations. There needs to be intentionality on the prioritizing of your time together. So you make eye contact with one another. So you are saying, you are all that matters to me right now. And so this time together, this togetherness is really important. So you get to know your child a little bit better, but also you gain the opportunity to disciple and speak life over your child. Don't let this just be another episode that you listen to. I want you to really practice the conversation that you just learned about, because two things are going to happen when you do that. First one, your kids are going to witness you practicing a new skill, right? It's something that you haven't always done. You haven't always taken the time to sit and look them in the eye and turn distractions off and start these conversations. So they're watching you practice something new, which is something you want them to do as well. But most importantly, your kids, when they're given the opportunity to digest new information with you, as in this moment, these new dreams, these new ambitions, aspirations, they are with you. You are their number one teacher. They are in their safest space, right? They're in their home under your wings. So the safest environment. When this starts happening, they begin welcoming new challenges as their curiosity, competence, and confidence flourishes, which makes them lifelong learners.